All right, welcome back to the channel. All right, so gonna do a little bit of a follow-up on Adrien Broner and this horrific brawl he had with Tank Davis's PR guy after a fight that I can't remember what fight it was, but I do believe it was a fight that was actually aired on Dazn, and Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated and Dazn, you know, the venerable journalist, said that it was that fight took place. But strangely enough, that doesn't jive with the police reports. So amazing. Adrien Broner accused of doing something that he didn't actually do based on sources from boxing media. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back. All right, so Adrien Broner is a former multiple division champion in boxing. People know very well who he is. He's got a very extroverted yet up and down type of personality, often talking a lot of smack to the media, and, you know, gets into altercations with people out in public, has issues with the law, all kind of stuff like that has been associated with Adrien Broner. But one day, after a fight that was aired on Dazn, Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated and Dazn, Mr. Walking Conflict of Interest, put out a report that Adrien Broner had gotten into a fight with a PR guy that worked for Tank Davis. Now, most people right off the bat said, man, that doesn't sound right at all. People saw Adrien Broner walking around laughing. He and Tank were laughing together. Seemed like they were just out having fun at a boxing match. And so a lot of people didn't believe it. Chris Mannix, these guys always quote these sources as if the source means that this is something that's infallible, right? So anyway, Chris Mannix goes out of his way to rub I think he did it actually on Dazn Live, and I think he did it in a tweet. If it was just a tweet, forgive me, but I'm pretty sure that I saw him on Dazn make a mention of it as well. But if it was just a tweet, it was just a tweet. However, he comes out and says that, that they got into this fight. Now the police report has been released, and the police report says that Adrien Broner slapped the phone out of somebody's hand that was sitting there following him around with a phone. Okay. Now I've seen Gervonta Davis do that before, where I was like, dude, you can't just go slapping phones out of people's hands, man. That's assault. Okay, you can't slap something. You slap the person. If the phone's in his hand, you slapped his phone out of his hand. You could have made him feel like he was in an imminent threat, reasonable for him to be in an imminent threat, that you were going to commit violence on him, right? So that fearfulness, that reasonable anticipation that you were going to attack him, could be constituted as assault. Okay, so it's not a smart thing to do. However, without a doubt, that is not the same thing as getting into a fight with a PR man. So clearly, Chris Mannix was wrong about this. This is one of these occasions where Adrien Broner did not do what he's accused of doing. Actually, I got a feeling there's a couple things he probably didn't do that he was accused of, like the girl, wind up getting all that money. More than likely, he was just drunk and acting stupid, and she took advantage of that dude being drunk and acting stupid and wound up getting paid. But in this particular incident, he didn't do it. Now, what does this say about Chris Mannix and these guys? Chris Mannix, to me, and a lot of these media guys they're walking conflict of interest, right? So you have people. The guy works for Dazn. Dazn's main competitor is Fox and the PBC, without a doubt. The number one, as much as Dazn wants to say we've got the best roster in the whole world. No, you don't. No, you don't have the best roster in the whole of boxing. The PBC has the best stable of fighters, if you want to call that, in boxing. From top to bottom, those guys are stacked, and they have a large number of very, very solid fighters. Now, Dazn has some big names, right? But they really have the names that were big from the last generation of boxers, not really moving forward, with the exception of Devin Haney. But regardless, Chris Mannix works for Sports Illustrated, uses his article in Sports Illustrated to promote fighters that fight on DAZN, right? And then tear down fighters that work for Fox. And you see it not just in the fighters, right? Not just in the fact, like, for example, he was so quick to put out that Adrien Broner had been arrested for assaulting Tank Davis's cameraman, right? Even though that's not true. How many things have you heard? How much did you hear about in the lead up of Canelo Alvarez versus Sergey Kovalev? How much conversation did you hear out of Chris Mannix about the impending trial that Sergey Kovalev was facing for something that we know he was accused of? Okay, there wasn't no source that said what it was that Sergey Kovalev was accused of doing. You could actually go and pull up the docket and find out exactly what it was that Sergey Kovalev was accused of doing. And let me tell you this for sure, he was not accused of slapping a phone out of some guy's hand that was taking a picture. He got accused of breaking some bones on a dog and sending somebody else to a situation where they needed urgent care. And so that was legitimately a dangerous dude, man. This guy is acting fools on airports. He being Sergey Kovalev was fighting in a big fight with Canelo Alvarez. So, hey, man, that really wouldn't be the right thing to talk about, right? Because you don't want to tear. Of course, you wouldn't want, in your pursuit of journalistic integrity, you wouldn't want to point that out about Sergey Kovalev, right? In the lead up to his big fight that took place on DAZN with Canelo Alvarez, right? Now, let's see. Is there any other instances of Chris Mannix just coming out of pocket, talking about somebody from the PBC for something that he would never say anything to somebody that fights for DAZN about? Yeah. I can come up with another example. He comes out with this break-even logic for Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury's fight, right? Deontay Wilder fights Tyson Fury, and they do between somewhere, it's amazing with PBC how far the range of estimates for pay-per-views are, right? On the low end, 800,000, on the high end, 1.2 million, right? It's just amazing how it used to be with HBO that as soon as one guy gave the number, that was the only number out there, right? Canelo does a fight, boom. Oscar De La Hoya says it did a 1.1. It did 1.1. Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua in the UK, Eddie Hearn says they think they broke records. Hey, it broke records. You get one estimate. But lately for the PBC, you get 3, 4, 5 different sources. One saying 25,000, the other one saying 2.5 million. So like nobody knows what the truth of the matter is, or there's no number that anybody can settle on, right? So Chris Mannix, first of all, he engaged in that with Fox and the total numbers of the PBC. Of the pay-per-views rather. But then he also does it and says that, they really expected between 1.1 and 1.2 million viewers so that they could break even on the fight. And his sources tell him that they didn't make that. So even though the numbers are big, it really is, it's really a failure, right? Now, let's just assume that's true. But seeing as, Chris Mannix gave that information about Adrien Broner, there's no real need just to go ahead and take him at face value, right? Like I've been telling y'all about these dudes. Don't just take what they say at face value. But let's see, did he ever bring up that same issue in another situation where you could have doubted what the break-even point is. Maybe the Canelo Alvarez fight with Sergey Kovalev, where they paid Sergey Kovalev $10-12 million. They pay Canelo Alvarez $35-40 million. That looks like $50 million just being paid out in purses. So if that's $50 million being handed out in purses, what's the break-even point on that? When you don't even have it on pay-per-view, right? So what are you gonna have to make $70 million? You have to make $70 million in new income? How are you gonna do that when you're not even charging, when you're just, it's regular subscribers that are paying for it, right? And they don't necessarily, and if they do sign up for the month, it's $20. At $20 a pop, you would have to have, what would you have to do? You'd have to have like almost 2 million people. What would you have to do? 2 million? Yeah, you'd have to do like 2 million new signups for Dazn to break even on that, right? And you think that he brought that logic out about Dazn, that is obviously throwing money, just pouring money down a hole? They've lost they've lost millions of dollars in 2017 and 2018. And I think it was close to $100 million in the red that those guys were in. They're not breaking even. Where's the conversation about their break-even points, Chris Mannix? Like I said, man, this dude is a walking conflict of interest. You got to take what these dudes say with a grain of salt, but yet they got nothing to say about a very, very serious issue that's going on in boxing that people are acting like don't exist. But we'll do that, another video on that a little later today. And with that, I'm out. Peace.